Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Casio F108 WH wristwatch. Let's go ahead and start off with a size comparison here. The obvious candidate is this little guy. This is the Casio F91W. And these two watches share a lot of, at least, philosophy, if you will. This is a $10 watch. This is a $15 watch. And the point of comparison is very strong here. So there you go. But size-wise, you can see the 108 is actually substantially larger. Here is another Casio. This is the Casio, what the heck's it called? The AE1200. Also, well, I like to call it the Casio Royale because it's modeled after a watch that James Bond wore. Full reviews coming up of this guy, by the way. But yeah, there you go, size-wise. Right here is a slightly more expensive watch. This is an Omega Seamaster Professional in a quartz movement. And right here is a standard U.S. quarter and, you know, tradition for the channel. This is a Spyderco Delica pocket knife. So there you go. Let's just go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular wristwatch here. So on the good side, first off, this is an entirely in-house movement in high horology that's greatly respected, and Casio has pulled it off here. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Eat your heart out there, Patek. This is a quartz movement, though, and like any quartz movement, it requires a battery. The battery in here is rated for 7 years, which is a good amount of time, and considering it'll probably cost you about the same to service the battery as it would to buy a new watch, not a lot of people are going to care, but it is, in fact, replaceable. Just pop these little screws off the back there, and you can probably do it yourself. Because, again, you're not out much money if you screw it up. So, there you go. Next thing on this guy, this is a very legible watch. Some Casio digitals have a tendency towards poor viewing angles. Well, if you're looking at all obliquely onto the screen, you can't read it anymore. But this guy has actually very, very nice viewing angles. It's very hard to not be able to read this watch. So, I appreciate that very much. Speaking of viewing, it's possible to view this guy at night because it has illumination, as you can tell by the large obnoxious type saying Illuminator at the top there. If we kind of shield it from the light here, I'll hit the light button, and then suddenly you see the entire screen lights up nicely. That's nice, and it works just fine. There's a nice tactile hardware button for it, so can't argue with that. The light does not stay on after you finish poking it, so you need to hold it on there as long as you want light, but hey, whatever, it works. Beautiful. It is a water-resistant watch. It's not waterproof by any stretch. You don't want to go swimming, but it resists water, which is a nice thing. It offers a choice of 12 or 24-hour time. If you just hit this button here, it switches you back and forth, which is nice. It offers a day display where it shows you that it is currently Sunday and the date, which is, well, currently the 2nd, which is nice. It offers you an alarm if you go over here, and actually the beeper tone on it is fairly loud. You know, it's not going to wake you up out of a super sound sleep from under a pillow, but you know what? It does the trick. It'll tell that. And you also get a stopwatch. So you can hit that little button and start a timer going. And it'll, I believe, get you up to 12 hours. Maybe even 24. I haven't tried it that long. But anyways, it'll run and run and run. Then you can stop it and reset it with the light button. And you move on with your life. Beautiful thing. And then finally, on the good side, this is a cheap watch. It is 12 to 14 bucks. There's not all that much that could be wrong with a watch that's 12 to 14 bucks. There are some issues, but still. That's a great price point, because at that price point, you really just don't care. If you lose it while traveling, if it gets destroyed, whatever, you know what? You're out 12 or 14 bucks. That sucks. I'd rather not be out that much, but you know what? It's good to go. So the price is very good, and actually that wraps up the good here, which was the price, the fact that you get a stopwatch and an alarm and a day and a date display. 24-hour time is an option, water resistance, illumination, a pretty decent removable strap. It's legible, it's got a 7-year battery, and in-house movement. Oh yeah. See this one on Hodinkee next week. Sorry. Let's go on to the great. To me, what's great about this watch is that it's a big improvement on a $10 watch, which is the Casio F91W. This watch is very similar in terms of functioning of the movement, in terms of features and whatnot, but it's missing some pretty substantial things. For instance, well, it's not a very substantial watch. I have very small wrists, but this guy looks very, very small on my wrist. It's borderline comical for most people, whereas this guy has a little bit more wrist presence. And it's also a little more legible as a result, which is very nice. You get the illumination on this. So on the F91, the illumination is just terrible. I'll see if I can show it off here, but you just get a little bit of light that kind of shines in from the corner. If your eyes are well adjusted, it can be enough, but it barely is, as opposed to on this guy here, where you really get full screen illumination. That's a big, big improvement. And then the other weird thing that, well, the Casio F91W has serious links to global terrorism. That's right, I did say that correctly. It turns out that terrorist groups had been using this guy as a component in bomb making for a long time, and so wearing one of these casts international suspicion on you as being a terrorist. This guy doesn't have that same reputation. So the fact that they've reduced the number of links to terrorism is probably a good thing if you're planning a lot of international travel, or at least if you're coming to the U.S. Other people may not be as crazy as we are. But anyways, there you go. So that's, to me, what's great, is that this is a great alternative with a lot of small quality of life improvements relative to your F91W here, and it's only a couple of bucks more. So you can't argue with that. Let's talk about the bad. So on the bad side, first off, it's not terribly fancy for a digital quartz watch. For instance, you get no solar power, no radio control, no high accuracy movement, no any of that, but it's 14 bucks, whatever. Next thing, it's not the prettiest watch on the God's, green earth there, but the thing is, it's fine. It's a functional tool. It works. Just don't wear this to the ball if you go to balls. I don't go to balls. Maybe some people go to balls. Anyways, moving it along here. Speaking of things that aren't so pretty, I'm not a big fan of the Illuminator water resist text on here. I tried to remove it using basic household chemicals. I failed. If you got a better solution, let me know in the comments down there. But nonetheless, it's just ugly, and I feel like the watch would be a little classier without it. So there you go. Next thing, and this is kind of a nitpick, but you know what? It bugs me, so I'm going to say it. The day text is always weird to me because, here, let's switch to when we're modifying the day here. If we go over here and we change it to Friday, you can see that it can't actually display an R in this mode. So instead you get Fa with a little dot. I know that Fa is not a day. That's okay with me, but I don't love Hey everybody, thank God it's Fa Day. Anyways, that's just weird to me. But moving it along there. Next thing, the water resistance is iffy. It's water resist only. This means it'll survive splashing, maybe some rain, but don't immerse it, don't put any pressure in this. That's kind of problematic because life has a way of dampening you without your necessary express consent. This should survive. And you know what? If it doesn't, it's a $15 watch, cost of doing business. But I do wish they did a little better than that. Next thing is that you can see here that when you hit this button 3 times, you're now in time reset mode, which makes it easy to change, for instance, your second hand to your hour hand just by accidentally hitting buttons. It's not the end of the world, but it is kind of frustrating to me. Then finally, the accuracy on this watch is stupendous by mechanical watch standards. We're running plus 1 second a day. But on the quartz side of things, that's actually not so impressive. That means you'll be 30 seconds late in a month, or no, you'll be 30 seconds early in a month, which is slightly better. But still, I don't love the accuracy here. I wish they'd done a little better. But again, by Rolex standards, this is freaking okay. So there you go. So that's, to me, what's bad here is the accuracy is okay for quartz watches. It makes it easy to accidentally change the time just by accidentally hitting buttons here. It's Illuminator water resist, which is weird. The water resistance is kind of weak anyways. Thank God for Fa Day, and then it's not all that pretty and it's not terribly fancy. I usually talk about the ugly. The Fa thing is weird to me, but you know what? It's a $14 watch, so none of this is particularly ugly. It's just a fact of doing life at that case. A fact of doing business or a fact of life. One of those two things. Anyways, let's move into your final conclusions then. Final conclusions. This is best thought of as being a quality of life improvement to your Casio F91W here. They've taken a $10 watch and they've made it into a $14 watch and used those $4 to fix some of the issues. The illumination's better, it's a little more substantial, it's a lot less terroristic. The nice little improvements here that make this a compelling upgrade here. If you're looking at this watch, honestly, I would probably send you to this one. This is just way better in pretty much every meaningful way. But in doing so, they've made a watch that is very high in value. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a freaking Patek. It's not going to kick the Omega off your wrist if that's what you're rocking right now. That's fine. If you're after jewelry, this is not going to be for you. And it is absolutely put to shame by some of the higher-end quartz digital offerings, like the Casio G-Shock GWN 5610 is, I got a review of that guy, check the channel, is $80, but it adds in solar power, radio control, some other nice high-end features. But you know what? It's $14. And for $14, this tells the time nicely. It has all the functionality that you need. And you know what? It looks okay doing it. It's fine. And the price-to-performance ratio is kind of off the charts here. You get a reliable watch that keeps decent enough time for 7 freaking years for $14. It's like $2 a year. I think you're going to be okay spending that on a watch. Personally, for me, I want something that's just a little bit more fancy on my everyday life because, well, I'm just a bit more fancy. That's code for pretentious, by the way. But if you just need an inexpensive, practical device on your wrist that tells the time, then I think this is going to be a great watch for you, and it probably would be a gem for you. So there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, that you have a great Friday, and that you have yourself a wonderful rest of the day, whatever else day it is. Bye now.